Fellas, ducking culture is ruining the UFC. I feel like 2025 has kind of been the year of ducking. Everyone across multiple different weight classes is ducking each other, trying to pick fights. It's no longer about the fights that people want to see. It's about the fights that fighters prefer. I mean, look at Arman Tsarukyan. It's literally Tsarukyan versus essentially the entire lightweight division. You've got Ilia Topuria, the champion. He's beaten Volk. He's beaten Holloway. He's beaten Oliveira. He's pound for pound number one. He's basically accomplished that most fighters could even dream of accomplishing. The fans want to see him versus Arman, or at least him versus Pimblett. He only wants to see him against Gaethje or Paddy Pimblett. He doesn't want anything to do with Arman. He's already said, I'm never going to give him the chance. If that's the case, take my belt.
World champion. I'm never going to give him a chance to fight for the title. I will.
And why is this? Is it because he knows Arman Tsarukyan presents a different threat with the wrestling? Does he not want to face a heavy wrestler in Arman Tsarukyan who could potentially be the biggest threat in the division to his belt? I think that could be the main reason. Is it because Arman Tsarukyan's number two, technically number one if Makhachev's left in the division? Nobody wants to see Gaethje fight because it's an easy fight for Topuria. That's why he wants Gaethje. It's an easy KO. 99.9% guaranteed he gets an easy KO over Justin Gaethje. Paddy Pimblett, I mean, it's probably more difficult than Gaethje, but it's still another easy win for Ilia Topuria. And he's out here saying he doesn't want to take Arman Tsarukyan. He's not even going to give him the chance. It isn't even like he said he'll fight Paddy and then fight Arman. He's just completely disregarded Arman. And this guy has the nerve to walk around with the BMF belt. And Arman Tsarukyan's been trolling Ilia back.
Ilia, stop running, Ilia. Stop running, Ilia.
He said, who wants to let Ilia know he's not McGregor and he's making all the champs look bad? Champs fight the number one contender. He's right on that. Even though he did pull out against Islam Makhachev, he should definitely be next against Ilia Topuria if we're talking in terms of who deserves the next shot. He said, imagine calling yourself a champion, but you're already looking for a way out. You can vacate it or I'll take it. Again, you can't really call yourself a champion if you ain't willing to fight the number one contender in the division. And Arman should fight another contender is what a lot of people are saying. You know, Tsarukyan should get another fight before he fights for the belt. And you know what? That's not a bad idea if you do want to do Pimblett versus Topuria. But you've got Justin Gaethje, who's suddenly decided that he wants to throw his toys out the pram. And he's decided he's not interested in anybody else but the champion. He said in multiple interviews he doesn't want to fight anybody in the division apart from Ilia Topuria, or at least whoever he's fighting for the belt. You've got Paddy Pimblett, who's been willing to fight anybody apart from Arman Tsarukyan. He's called him posh boy this, posh boy that. Doesn't want to fight Arman. It's like nobody wants this dude. It's impossible for Arman to get a fight. Nobody at 155 wants to take this guy on. Ilia Topuria won't fight Arman Tsarukyan despite him being the number one contender. Gaethje won't fight anybody apart from the champion in Ilia Topuria. Paddy Pimblett won't. Well, I think Paddy Pimblett would be happy to fight Gaethje, but he definitely won't fight Tsarukyan at this moment in time. Makhachev won't fight Topuria. It's like the ultimate ducking championship in 2025. And 2 months back, obviously the whole John Jones situation as well, the literal goat of the sport, ducking Tom Aspinall. Despite Aspinall being the interim champion, they still went down and made Jones versus Stipe, which still to this day is one of the biggest flops, one of the worst title fights the UFC could have put on out of all the options. And then to make it worse, John Jones sits out for 8 months, no strip of the belt, which is where the UFC could have enforced it. If you're going to give him the title fight against Stipe, at least enforce a strip. And then you've got Yair Rodriguez as well. He literally had an entire moment at the press conference. He made the press conference at UFC 314 with Diego Lopez, that rivalry between the two of them. And then ever since Diego Lopez lost to Volk and Yair beat Patricio Pitbull, this was the obvious fight to make. There was literally an event in Mexico, or at least it was going to be in Mexico, for this fight, Lopez versus Rodriguez, and Yair Rodriguez ducks him, only wants the title fight. He says, I prefer to fight him in the streets. Yeah, of course you would, mate. You can't. I hate when fighters do this, where they say they'd rather fight them in the streets, not in the octagon, because you know you get whooped in front of millions of people. And he's literally lost most of his recent fights. He's fought Volk before. That's like Yair Rodriguez isn't, in my opinion, he's even like the top 3 most deserving contenders, and now he's calling for a fight with Volk. And even Tom Aspinall versus Cyril Gane. Gane's getting a title fight, and I'm not disagreeing with that, but he's also a notorious duck. He ducked Tom Aspinall in Paris after Tom Aspinall beat Marcin Tybura. He said he didn't want to fight down. He ducked him for the interim belt. He had the option to fight Aspinall for the interim belt. He said no, so they did Curtis Blades instead. Even before the rankings, even earlier in their career, Cyril Gane didn't want to fight Tom Aspinall because he thought he could be a threat to his future. He's also historically ducked Jelton Almeida and Curtis Blades, never wanted to fight Almeida, refused to fight Curtis Blades multiple times, and Blades has gone out and said that as well. And now he's getting his 3rd title shot, not his first, but his 3rd title shot against Tom Aspinall, despite being a notorious duck. And I feel like the UFC are encouraging this behavior. You can't even blame the fighters all for this. It's kind of like the UFC encouraged this. Like when they made Jones versus Stipe instead of Aspinall. When they made Pereira versus Roundtree, which, don't get me wrong, it was a sick fight instead of Magomed Ankalaev. When they booked Evloev versus Pico, which is one of the biggest disgraces out there, instead of Volk. The UFC should enforce the rule that you have to fight the number one contender if they want to get rid of this whole ducking culture. If there is a number one contender, an undeniable number one contender that should be next for the belt, they should get the title fight. Because if they don't do this, if they keep giving these random ass title fights, it's going to give these champions this entitlement. It's going to give contenders this entitlement. tournament that they don't have to fight the number 1 guy. Now, what I don't mind is cases like Merab versus O'Malley too, because at this moment in time, there wasn't really a number 1 contender. Sandhagen hadn't fought Figure yet. O'Malley was was one of the top contenders, and he was the biggest star. I can understand why the UFC made Merab and O'Malley too. I'm not too mad about that. Or Aspinall versus Gane. Even though Gane is a notorious duck, there's no other good heavyweight contender in the division right now apart from Cyril Gane. It's literally pick your poison, and Cyril Gane happens to be the best. I'm not mad about that. What I do mind is Evloev and Yair Rodriguez, where Yair Rodriguez gets the title shot despite having a complete mess of a record, despite Movsar Evloev being the requested guy for the belt, both by Volk and the fans, being on this huge winning streak, undefeated, number 1 contender, and they're going to give it to Yair Rodriguez. What I do mind is cases like Jones and Stipe, where they give Stipe Miocic the title shot instead of Tom Aspinall. These are the cases that I do mind, when there's a clear-cut number 1 contender that the UFC obviously are trying to alter around. So I just think ducking coaches ruining the UFC. I'm just going to do a quick video on this. With the lightweight division right now, with Tapori and Arman Sarukian, with some of the title fights we've had in the past few years, it seems like ducking is becoming a lot more of a common theme between fighters, between champions, and it needs change. We can't have this all the time where somebody becomes a champion and they don't want to take on the number 1 contender. They want to have the biggest fight, or, you know, some made-up narrative like, you know, for example, they might have a big rivalry or whatever reason to make the fight instead. So, ducking coaches ruining the UFC. Let me know your thoughts and if you agree. Thank you for watching.